All right, so we're going to continue from where we stopped last time. We started with this our simple application that we are using to connect to um, external resources like backend or services that you want to get the data from to display to the user. Because when you're working on most of the sites, the data that you want to work with, they are not static, and they are being stored somewhere apart from your application. So you need to go to where that data is and retrieve it, then display it to the user on the screen. And in order for you to connect to the external service, we said we need to use uh, the API that is given to us to communicate with the external services. And we've already talked about what is our API. We talked about the fetch API that we can use to communicate with the backend services or any API services to get the data. And we are currently using it for this simple application where we have the list of the user, and once you click on any of the user, as you can see here, it will display the post for that particular user. And when you click on any particular post too, it will show the full details by the right of this post list. So what we are going to have on the page, let me click on this link. This is what we're going to have currently because no user is selected. So and once any of the user is selected, it will display the post for that particular user. And once you click on any post too, it will display the full details about that particular post. And last time we were able to connect to the API that give us the list of the user, or the list supposed to look like this. The only thing we just displayed last time is just the name, but we need to have it in this way where we're going to generate this circle stuff, and inside it the first letter of each of their name are going to be used inside this box. Then their name will be at the top, and under it we said we are going to display the email. And once it's clicked, then it will display the post list. And once you click on any post too, then it will show the full details of that particular post along with the comment. But where are we getting this data from? We are using this free API service, which is this backend services that we can use for free. Yeah, so let me bring this browser to this side. So we are using this JSON placeholder to as our backend services, where we can go to any of these resources to fetch what we need. And the only one that we are currently fetching right now is the user. So we are able to get the user from these services that we are using for free there. As you can see, we have different paths that we can go to get a particular resources, and the one that we are getting first is this user, which is coming from this our component here, which is this user list. So under the user list, we want to fetch the user once this component is rendered for the first time, and that's the only time it will fetch the API. And that's the reason why we have this effect here. Not until you click on a button before it will make API call. It will happen once this component mounts for the first time. And when you want to run some code, when your component is mounting for the first time, and that's the only time it will do it, you can use this effect there, and you pass this empty dependency. So which means this thing will only be called the first time this component is rendering there. In case anything change in this component, it's not going to call the effect again because we are passing empty dependencies. And as you can see inside the effect, we are creating this function here, which is having this async. And inside the function, we are setting our state loading to true so that we can show the loading to the user. Let me go back to the page and let me reload. You see that there's going to be a loading that will show here for a brief. As you can see, there's a text here as loading depending on the network speed, because the network is really fast, so you not really see that loading because the thing is really fast, so it will just come out briefly and disappear there. So we have this loading that we are setting, and we are communicating with our service by using the fetch API to get the resources that we want from this endpoint. And as you can see here, we are checking whether the resources we are getting back is okay or not. So if it's okay, we extract out the data that is there by using this JSON method that is on the response. And once you use the JSON, then this thing will return the data back to us, and that data we are setting it in our state so that we can render them down here. And that's the reason why we don't see anything when the page is loaded for the first time, because it needs to go to that backend to get the data. As you can see, it's empty and it displays that loading briefly, and after that the data comes back. The loading was set to false when the data is back, and the data is being rendered on the screen, but we are only displaying the name of the user. So we need to add other information that we need on the page there. So let me save this in. What are we getting back from the backend? So open the network tab. As you can see, you are going to see all the necessary data you are getting back. So for each one of them, as you can see, we have address, we have the company, we have the email, we have the name, we have the phone, we have the username, and we have the website. And the only thing we said we want to display for each user is going to be the name. Beside the name, we are going to have their initial joined together as the DP for that particular user. And under the name, we are going to display the email address. So we need to create a component for each one of these items here. Right now, I'm just passing the link directly like this, but we're not going to be passing the link, or we can just do it here too, but it would be nice if we just created a separate component. So I'll put it down here so that we can see what is going on instantly, but we can actually move it into the component folder. So I'm going to call it this. So function like this. So user item. So each one of these name is what I'm calling item there. And don't forget, this thing is going to receive the user. So it's going to receive the user. Under the user, we know that we're going to receive the email based on what we have here. So we are going to receive the email there. We're going to receive name, and we are going to receive the ID, because ID is needed in order for us to be able to route them into the correct post there. So we're going to receive the ID. We are going to receive the name. So we're going to receive the name, and those are the stuff that we need. So we need email, ID, and name. Every other thing that if you need them to, you can destructure it here, but these are the only thing that I need for this component. And what do we want to do? We just want to render this our link. So I'm going to cut out everything here, render it here, and at the top here, what do? We just return this our user here. And what do we need to supply to it? We need to supply the user. So the user we are getting from here, we need to supply everything as props into it so that we can get it from here and do what we need. So here now we don't need to be doing user dot again, because we are receiving it as ID. So here too is going to be ID for the key, but the key is not supposed to be here. So since it's not the one that we are using as list again, so it's going to be here, and it's going to be user dot ID. Again, there is nothing like user dot name. Is going to be name. And if everything is working, we should still have the same application on the page. Shouldn't have any difference there. The only thing we just did is to extract out the component into its own standalone component there. So it's still the same thing. And reload the page, you see that we're still going to have the same thing that is on the page, because I did not add anything. The only thing we just did is to extract out the component. But we want to make sure that our component is like this, where we have this section. So, and in order for it to be like this, we need to apply, or we need to arrange the content in a way that we are going to be able to use our CSS. So in order for this thing to work, this is the way we need to arrange the content. So we are going to have, this is each of the item. So inside the item, we are going to have this area here, which is going to have this circular stuff, and along with the initial of their names inside the box. And we're going to generate random background. Again, we're going to have their name on this line, and after that line, we are going to have the email under it like this. So this is a layout that we need to create inside that element there, or inside the component that we created. So this is the layout that we need to have for this each user that we want to have on a page. So we need to arrange everything in this way. So instead of just passing the name under the links like this, no, that's not what is going to be there. We are going to have a div, and inside this div, that's where we are going to have the initial. So I will just use AS right now as just a placeholder. Then after this div, I'm going to have another div, and inside this place, that's where we're going to have the name. Then after the name, so I need to put this one in something like let me use H5 so that it can come out bold, even though Tailwind is not going to show it like that, but let's use H5 because it's like a heading. Then after that, we're going to have the span, and inside the span, that's where we're going to have the email. So save, and on the page, as you can see, we have the text that is going to be showing there, and we have the name and we have the email. But I only want this email to always be in small letter, so I will always convert it to small letter, which is going to be to lower case, because I don't want the thing to show this capital S for the email. So once this thing is saved and it gets to the screen, as you can see, all the email will always be in small letter. But how do we get their initial? So how do we get the initial? For example, now look at this particular name. So let's just assume the name of the user is this, and we want to get the initial of that name. This is JavaScript. This one is not related to React at all. This is just normal JavaScript. So let me have username like this. Let me just set it to this Liam Graham. So what do we want to get? We want to get this first letter, and at the same time we want to get this first letter of their last name. So how can we do it? What we can do here is that to break this into two, and we can use the string method to extract or to take parts of the text. Don't forget, in your text you can actually take any part you want. For example, like this user name like this, if I want to take the first letter, I can just use index 0. As you can see, it's going to give me the first letter. We know that we can get that one for the first, but we don't know the number of characters for their first name. So what we can do here is to break the name into two based on space. So what we can just do here is to use username then the split, because we know that each one of the name will always be separated by space. So now we have the first name and we have the last name, or we have the last name and we have the first name, depending on whatever they are using to separate the stuff. But what we need here is the first character of this one and the first character of this one. So what we can actually do here is just to do the first name like this. So the last name, I'm using the structuring here, which is going to be the username, then the split. So we are going to split it into two. Then once we get it, you see that the first name is just going to be this Liam, and the last name like this, you see that is Grant, and we can extract what we need there. So we can just say first name like this and get the zeros. This one will give us the first letter from it, and for the last name too, we can just extract the first letter, and combining the two of them together, then we can have the initial, and that's how you can get the initial from their name. So you have this Alessandra now Smith. So this Alessandra Smith, we cut it, we divide it into two, or we split it by the space that is in between the Alessandra and Smith. So we take the first letter of the first one and we take the first letter of the second one, then combine them together, and we are going to have our init, or we are going to have the name or the text we want to use as their DP. So how can we do this thing in our code? We can actually create a method that is going to do this thing for us, or we can just type it on this line directly, since we are working on this component. So what I can just call it here is, I'm going to call it initials. So I'll call it initials like this. And what is the initials there? Is going to be the name, or I can split it first so that we can actually get the stuff. So I'm going to split the name first. So initial names like this, which is going to be the name like this, then dot split. So this one is going to give us the array of the initial that is sent to us from the name. So based on that, we can now create the initial that we actually need. So initial, it's going to be the initial like this. It's going to be these initials at the top. So copy this one. So at 0, this one is going to give us the first one, then 0 again, then plus, and just move everything like this and move it here. I'm going to demonstrate it on the screen there so that you can see what is going on here. So this one is going to be 1 because we know that they are going to be 2. This is what I'm doing here. So let me clear everything again and showcase it here. So we are going to have const names, which is going to be whatever you want to call it. So bounty class like this. So let's just assume these are the names. So we have the first and we have the last. So const, we have this initial names like this, or initial names like this. So which is going to be name then split. So that's what we are doing on that line. So press enter, and this initial name, as you can see, it has 2 items. So that's what is going on this line. So this line is to split the name into 2 so that we can add the array like this. And we have the first one and the second one. But what is this line is doing here? So what is this line doing? What it's doing is that, as you can see, inside it, we have bounty. So that's what this first 0 is going to give us. The first 0, this one will give us bounties. While the second 0 will now give us the B that is under that first one. So let me save it and just remove this one first, like this. So, and let me even remove this entire stuff. So press enter. I don't have, the name is not corresponding to each other, so let me use the name we used at the top. So we have this initials, initial names like this. Can you see? So it's giving us the B. The first 0 is going to give us this entire bounty, while the second 0 will now give us the B that we got. So if I remove this second one without putting, as you can see, we are getting the entire text. But what I need here is B, not the entire text, and that's the reason why I'm extracting out the stuff. This first one will give us this entire bounty, while this second one will give us the B that is here. And again too, for the second one, as you can see, this is index 1, this is index 0, and this is index 1. So we can do the same thing for that one too. We use the first one to extract the entire class, and we use 0 to only pick the C that is there. Or I can just show it without the second one. As you can see, it's giving us the entire value of the second array, and after that we are extracting the first letter that is here. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just combining the first letter of the first name plus the second one. So when you join the two of them together, then it's going to give us the initial that we are looking for. So if you do it now plus, so initial names like this as 1, then we have 0. As you can see here, we now have BC. So we have bounty and we have class. So we are picking the B, we are picking the C, and we combine them together to form BC so that we can have something like this. So A is coming from Alexander, while S is coming from Smith. The same thing too with this Mike Apple. So M is coming from Mike, A is coming from Ample, and so forth like that, depending on the name. So for this one now, it's going to be LG. For this one, is going to be EH, and so forth like that, instead of this AS that we have currently right now. So we can now copy this one. So, and instead of this AS, we can just replace it with what we have at the top there. So save, and each one of them now should be based on the name. As you can see, LG, EH, CB, GL, CD, and so forth like that, depending on the name that we have there. So we solved that initial, but the other thing we need to solve now is to generate random background color. So how do we generate random background color? That one too is simple, because you know the pattern of background color that you want there. So you know we have this RGB where you have the first 0 or like this. This is another value and this is another value. So the first value here, this is for your red, this is for the green, and this is for the blue. And you know that the value is always between 0 to 255. And in JavaScript, we can generate a random number between 0 and a particular number. So how do we do that? We can use this math.random. So this math.random now, multiplied by any number, will give you a number between that stuff that you multiply and 0. It will not include that number. So which means if you want 255 to be included, we need to use 256 like this. And once you multiply it, as you can see, it will generate a random number between 0 and 255. 5, 6. So if I press enter again, as you can see, it's giving us 6. Press enter again, it gives us 43. But we don't need all these decimal points because the code that you need for color doesn't use decimal point. So we need to remove decimal point. How can we remove decimal point? It's easy to, because this math again, it's giving us some other method that we can use to remove. So if you want to round, you can actually use round. For example, if I put 4 here, as you can see, it's going to return 4. Or if I use 4.2, as you can see, it's returning 4. Or if I use 4.5, can you see now, it will round it up. But this is not what I want to use. We have some other one too, which is known as cell. So what is cell? This one will always round up no matter what you pass into it. So if I find 4.2, as you can see, is rounding it up. Even if you pass 4.7, it's still going to be 5. When you say round, it will work like the normal mathematics you know. If it is a number below 5, it will round it down, turn it to 0 and remove the stuff. If it's a number from 5 and above, then it will round the number up. But when I say cell, this one will always round up. No matter the number at the back, it will always round up. So when you have 4.1, as you can see, it's still 5. Again too, what if you want to always round the stuff down? Not you always want to round it up. You can use math.floor. So this floor now, whether you use 4.1, it will be 4, or you use 4.7, it will always be 4. So floor, we always round down. Cell, we always round up. While the round, we do the normal one that you know in math. And we can now use this floor because we don't want the stuff to round up, because the maximum is 255. We don't want it to get to this 25RC like that. Or you can use another one too, which is known as math.trunc. So this one, the job of this one is to remove decimal parts of the number. So if you pass this 4.5, as you can see, it will just return the number before the decimal point. It doesn't care about the decimal point. It will only return the number before the decimal point. So you can use the floor, or you can use this trunc to get a number that we want, because we don't want anything like decimal point. So now we can use math.trunc like this. Then inside it we pass math.random like this. So random like this. Then multiply by 2, 5, 6, and as you can see, this thing is going to give us a number that we want without decimal point. So if I run it again, as you can see, it will always generate a number between 0 and 255. And we can use this thing now to generate the color, or to generate the value for this red, to generate the value for this green, and to generate the value for this one. So we can just create a function for that one now, or we can do it on this line too. So const random bg like this is just going to be this rgba. I don't need that a. So inside this place, we need to use that math.truncate, but I'm going to be typing this in multiple times. So instead of me typing in multiple times, I can actually create a function that is going to get call. So don't let me to do it in this way, or we can just quickly do it so that you see what is going on. Just that I have to repeat myself 3 times, which is bad, but I will do it like that for now. So math.trunc like this. So, and inside the math.trunc, what are we passing? Math.random, then multiply by 2, 5, 6. So this is the color that is going to give us the code, or the number is going to generate for only red. So we need to generate the one for the green, and we need to generate the one for the blue. So we can just copy the same thing, press space bar again, another space bar, and we should have the 3 colors. So another space bar again, so that I can generate. But look at it now, it's really long and I'm repeating myself. But instead of us doing it like this, we can create a function, and that function will just return a random color based on this thing. So the function will always get called every time like that. But I will just leave it like this for simple reading there. But when I'm working in real sense, I can just create a function here, which is going to be random number like this. And what is this function going to do? It will just return that stuff that we have at the top. So this is what it's just going to return. It will just return what I have here. So instead of me calling this thing again and again, so I can just replace all of them like this. So replace this one like this. Then for this one too, replace it. See, it's quite easy, readable compared to what we have before. This one too, let me remove this line. This is error here. And lastly, we call it here. So this is another way of doing it, and it's more readable compared to what we had before, that I have to repeat this long line. Or instead of me using this random, I can just call it rand like this, which is short, because I don't need to type long stuff. And as you can see, it's quite easy to read like that. So this random bg now, yeah, so it will cause error because I'm calling it before, but I need to move this one down so that it will be easier to see. So now there shouldn't be any error again. So what do we want to do? We want to use this thing as a background. So we want to use it as a background where we want to use it on this div, and we want this div to have a particular height. So let me give it a class name first, and let us see what is going on. So we're going to have h of 8, w of 8, because I want this thing to be rounded. And in order for it to be rounded, we need to have the same height and weight so that it can give us what we want. So let me use bg red for now, and color or text should just be white. But this thing can cause a problem later on, because what if the background too is white? But for now, let's just leave it like this. So the bg is going to be 500 red, but we are going to replace it later on with the color that we are generating. So this is what I'm doing here. So as you can see, it is rounded, but the text needs to be at the center. But this thing is small, so let me change it to 10 so that we can have a bigger circle. So 10. So save, and here now we should have this circle, but I think it's too big. Let's leave it at that 8. So the 8 is okay like this, but the text needs to be at the center, so we can display it as flex. So items center, which is align item center. Again, justify center, so justify center like this. And again, text align to should be center, so text center like this. So save, and we should have the text at the center of the circle. As you can see, is now at the center, but the color that we're actually using for background right now is not supposed to be red. It's supposed to be generating it for us dynamically there. So how can we do that? So we can pass our styling into this element. So here now we can just pass our style, and it's going to give us this background like this. And what is going to be the background is going to be this random bg. So we are creating a style, which means this thing will be dynamic because it's coming from here. You can't just pass in it to Tailwind. If it is dynamic, you can't pass it to Tailwind. So you have to do it yourself. And that's why I'm using the style on the element. We are passing the background, and the value we are using is this random X or random this RGB that we are generating on the fly. As you can see, it's now going to give us different colors. So as this user is being called here, it will generate different initial based on the name, and at the same time it will generate different bg. For some time it might look the same, but most of the time they will be different, and it will be generating different color. If I reload again, you see that the color will not be pink again for that first one. It will generate another color. So that's what is going on, and this is what I'm saying here, that the white might not work for all of them, but for now we just leave it like that. But normally if you want to work, you need to use a color that is going to work. But most of the time you can see here they are actually using this dark color. So let me to change it. So instead of us using this white as a text color, we can actually change it to let me use this Tailwind slate. So in Tailwind we have something known as slates, and these slates come with different variants too, where you can have 200, 600 and so forth like that. So let me use their slate, which look like a dark color like this. So let me save it, and once you get to the screen, as you can see now, we have the same thing like that. So I don't think this color is going to clash, but it's something that can happen because we are generating the color on the fly. So if you click on this refresh again, you see that it will generate another set of color, but this one is not showing clearly. That's what I'm saying here, that we should look at the background, and based on the background we generate a lighter version of that color there, which is something that we can do. But for now we are going to skip that one and focus more on the other part. So what is the other part that we need to focus on? We need to make sure that all these things, they are on the same line. This our name is bold, the email is small, and it is under this one. So what can we do? So we need to style this our link. So class name here like this. So we are going to have the flex items center like this, so that the content can come to the center. We need a gap of this around 2, which is going to give us some gap of 0 point something. As you can see here, we have this text here, or this one by this side. So the next thing we need to do is to style this our element here, which is already being placed on top of each other. So I don't need to do that. Let me just enter this one. So class name, we want this one to be bold. So font bold, the name should be bold, like this. Yes, so the name should be bold, like that, but this one should be small. So class name, so the text small like this. So I want the text to be small, or let me even use xx, which is 12 pixels. So save, and we should have the text smaller. Look at the problem now. As you can see, some of them, the name is not showing. So it's better we use a color that matches the background. We're going to do that one later on. But for now, I will skip it, but that's not the major thing. It's just addition. So for this one, the class name, we're going to have flex. So the gap of this one is just going to be 0.25 rem like this, which is 0.4. But I think Tailwind actually have this value, so I don't need to be doing it myself. So let me see gap 1. Yeah, so they actually have it like that. So save, and this thing should put them side by side. That's not what we want. So flex, or we have this flex pole, so that it can put them on top of each other. And we want this one to always take the remaining space that is left in that parent. So we can use flex 1, so that it take up the entire space that is left in the box there. And as you can see again, all these things, they are jam packed together. So we need to kind of space them from the parent. So this is the parent here. We are displaying it as a flex here, and I'm using gap of 2, but this 2 is too small. Let me try 5, and we should have enough space in between each one of them. As you can see here, each one of them is having space. Or let me even use a bigger number, so that you can see another problem that is going to occur here. So look at it. Can you see the name is going outside because the parents cannot accommodate the stuff. So what can we do here? What we can do here is to use height of full here for this one. And what we can do, what we can just do is so what we can do here is to have heights, or we can just say each screen. So the height of this thing, we always match, or it can be screen because there is another space that is here, so it can be screen. So we are going to, let me give you the BG so that you can see what is going on. BG red 500 like this, so that you can see what is going on. So this is it. Can you see that it's going outside of its parent? So what we can do here is the max height should be 100. So we don't want it to go more than its parent. So we can use max height full like this. So what is going to be there is that the maximum height of this thing is going to be 100%. And anything that is now trying to go outside of it, we want the overflow to be auto. So anything that is going outside, we want it to show the scrolling bar for us once it's trying to go outside. But I'm not saying anything because here it is not taking the entire full width. So let me go to the parent, this one now. So this is what is causing the problem. So the parent here, we did not give it any height or so. It doesn't know what is going on the page. But instead of us creating extra elements like this, we can actually remove it and only display what we need. Because this one now is an extra element, and that's the reason why it doesn't know about this parent. So let me go there now. So if you look at it, we have this section. So inside this section, we have the header, and inside the header, can you see we have extra div there? But this extra div did not have any height, but we are talking to this one to take the height of his parent. So we need to remove this one because we don't want it to be taking any unnecessary space. So what we can do here is to use our this thing here by using our fragment. You know, fragment doesn't have extra element on the page. When you're using fragment, it doesn't have, or it doesn't add any extra element to the page. What it will do is that this is the only thing you see on the screen, but this one is just a way for us to fake to react that we only have one element. Because if you just remove it like this, so let me remove it, this one too can work, but when you have multiple elements, it can cause problem like this. So I don't want to be rearranging the stuff, so that's why I'm using this fragment, so that by the time you get to the page, React will not render any div. As you can see, the div has disappeared, and as you can see now, is working the way we want it to be. Because of that extra div, it will not work because we did not give it height, and I don't want to be giving the height to that div because it's not doing anything there. So this is the div that we need, not the one here. And again, this one will only show when there is a list. When there is no list, what it will show in place is this p that we are going to be replacing later on there. So we don't need this bg500. It's just for us to see what is going on. So save, and when the name is more than the list, as you can see, it's going to show us the scrolling bar that we can use to scroll up or to scroll down based on what we've done before there. But this 10 is too much. It's just for you to see that stuff. So I'm going to change it to 5 here. But if the name, as you can see, the name is not passing, so there is no way it will be doing that. And I want to have a padding at the top, so pt should be 5 like this, so that we can have extra spacing at the top here, because it's too jam-packed to that title that we have there. So now, since the element is not going outside, we are not going to see the scrolling bar. But if it's going outside, then we are going to see the scrolling bar coming out there. But that's a problem. But right now there is no problem. But this thing that we are doing here, if the name we are getting is not having the second item, it can cause problem like this. So it will be better that we just undo the stuff. So we can use this knowledge assertion to check whether the stuff is there or not. So if it is there, use it. But if it's not there, just use undefined, which is bad too. What we can actually do here is to use empty string or to use something else. But for now, I will just leave it like that so that we don't have any error. And as you can see, we have the name like this. But it would be nice if this thing is showing that we are actually on a particular one. So any one of them that we are currently on, we want to see it being highlighted on the page. So on this stuff, we can actually use our overstate. We are going to have the bg, which is going to be the same background that we have there, but we want a lighter version of it. But for now, I will not do that. I will just use bg slate, and I will use this 300 here as the background there. So anytime you move on top of any one of them, we want it to actually have this symbol. It's kind of close to the background, so it's not really showing. Let me take it up so that I see that it's actually there. Let me see this 800. Yeah, as you can see, it's there, but this is not what I want. This is not what I want. So I even need padding around everything. So p should be 2 because it's not supposed to jam pack with the text. So we need a padding around the box. So let's add padding, and I need a padding on left and right like that. So now this thing is creating extra space. So let me remove the gap that I apply from here. So let me use 4 1 area, because I don't want the line, but the line will show when there is nothing there. And this background that we are using, so let me change it to amber or ember, or this amber. So amber, let me try this 200. We don't have any UI design, so we are working it by ourselves. So yeah, I think this one is making sense. Let me try the 100. Let me try the 100 so that it can show to us that we are actually on a particular, yeah, I think this one is okay. So any one of them that you are currently on, it will show you like this. Again, later on, anyone we click on, it will mark it that this is the current one you selected, or this is the current user. But for now, we are focusing on the API integration. The UI part, we don't want to do too much on them, but you can actually add it so that you show that, okay, this is 1, so this one's supposed to be marked. If I click on this 1, so it's 5 now, it's supposed to mark it that this is the current user that we are working on. But we are going to leave it like that for now, because we are only focusing on the API call there like that. So we have this user, so we have the list of the user, and the next thing we need to work on is a post for this particular user. So the next thing we need to work on is a post for this particular user, and we already have the page for that. So anytime you click on any user, it will take us to this place, and inside this place, as you can see, we have the user post list. So we need to fetch the post of the user from this component. But before we get there, as you can see, this background is not getting down. So we need to make sure that that background is actually getting down by us using hScreen. So which means this thing will always take up the screen that we have there. As you can see here, it is always going to take, so something is missing here. So let me put 1. So it's always going to take the height of it like this, instead of it just stopping where the content stop like that. So at the top here too, it will be nice if you actually have the heading for this one too. So I'm going to have the header, and inside the header here, I'm going to have the h2 as a title, which is going to be users post, or you can just say post directly. So at the top, we are going to have the user post, and under it, we are now going to have the list. But now it's doing it the way I don't want it to do. So let me just cut this thing out, move it inside this place because of the way we do our layout. So here we need to display it as, so flex gap should be around these 3, so that you can put a space in between them, and as you can see, it will arrange it the way we want it to be. So this one too here, I don't know the color we want to use, but this blue is not doing justice at all to what we have. The background is not matching at all. So let me reduce it to this 200, but that's not the major thing here. We are not focusing on this stuff. We are only focusing on our design, so on the API call. So P5, I don't want to stress too much on the design aspect, so we are only focusing on the functionality, not the UI. So the UI is not the major thing, functionality is what we are after right now. So we need to enter this our user post so that we can fetch all the posts that is meant for the user, just like the way we have it here. So once you click on any user, instead of it just saying post 1, post 2, post 3, it will fetch the post that is meant for that particular user. So how can we get a post that is meant for a user? So if you go back to this our API call again, as you can see, we can go to any one of them and just fetch based on users. So we can fetch a post based on user. So look at it, we can fetch a post based on user. So this is the endpoint we need to call. We need to go to this /post here, and we supply the user ID. But how do we get the user ID? Don't forget, we are passing it already in the URL. Let me use the same background I actually have here, but make it darker. So let me go into this user list. So where's our user list? Let me go back to the home page. So on the home page, what am I using as a background? So I'm using BG Slate 300. So I'm just going to increase it a little bit for this other one. So where's the other one? Let me close anything that I'm not using right now. So user list, for the loader, I'm not using right now. So the user, this is the component I actually created that we're going to be using. So let me move it there. So the one we actually have here, so this thing that we have down here, so the user item that we have down here, supposed to be that component. So let me cut out everything that we have here, move it into the component. So this is where it's supposed to be. So move it into the component since we've worked on it already. Then inside this place, we delete this one. At the top, we change it to user and we import it from that component. I'm just separating them, moving it into its own folder here. So it's not a must that you do it like that, but I think it's better like this. So let me wait for this thing to import. What's wrong with the VS Code? So let me wait for VS Code to load. So why is this one complaining? Okay, we don't have access to link. VS Code don't slow down. Okay, VS Code, what's that? Let me import. So import link. Any other thing? No. So here, let's import the user, which is coming from the component. Yeah, so like that. It's coming from the component folder. Users, okay, this one too is coming from the component. And let me save everything. So file, save all, and we shouldn't have any difference. Okay, ID is not defined. ID is not defined. So why is it complaining that the ID is not defined? So where is it coming from? On the user, on line 29. So let me enter the user. So why is it complaining that the ID is not defined? We are receiving the ID. Oh, I'm not receiving all these things from the component. So we are receiving the name, we are receiving the ID, and we are receiving what other thing we are receiving there? Email. So yeah, like this. So save, and everything should be working back now. So save, yeah, so everything is back. We just move it into its own folder. So let me close it so that so where are we? We are inside the user post or the post page. So here too, I will just use bg slate. The one we use for the user side is 300. So this one I'm going to use 400 like this. It's just going to be close to each other. So the background here, it's really bad. Let me type 200. Yeah, I think this one makes sense a little bit. Or let me use what is there before. I think that one is even making sense than all this. So blue 200. Yeah, I think this one is making sense than what we have before. So what do we need to do? Inside our user post, we need to fetch the post. As you can see currently, I have this dummy post that is there, but this is not what we want to use. So we want to fetch our post when the component is mounted. So we want to use effect again. So inside our effect, we are going to communicate with the API again. So here, what do we need? We need the ID of the user. And based on that user, we are going to fetch. So how do we get the ID of the user? It's easy because we've talked about the params. So inside our params, we can get the name or we can get the ID that we need. So we can use this use params. Whatever parameter that we pass in the URL, this thing is going to give us there like that. So let me call it params like this. And let's just console log it out. So console, then .logs, then pass the params like this. So save, go back to the screen, go back to the console, reload the page, and in the console we should have our param. Can you see here? We have the params, which is having the user, then followed by the ID. So the ID you pass or whatever user you click on, it will always give you the params. So now we click on the user 6. So if we click again, you see that we click on user 5. If we click on another one, we click on user 2. Then based on this ID, we make API call to fetch the post for that particular user. So we know that under these params, there is a user ID there. So const user ID, so const user ID is going to be params like this dot user ID, because we know user ID is part of the object, so we can get it. Or instead of us doing it like this, we can just extract it out directly from here by using destructuring. So instead of us wasting extra line, we can just destructure it and set it to empty string by default in case it is not there, but there's no way you will not see it. Before you can get to this component, it's always going to be there. And we want to run this our code when the user ID change or when this thing is running for the first time. So let's create our fetch again. So fetch data, I'm going to call it fetch data, which is going to be async. And from there, what do we need to do? We need to await our data ID. So const response is going to be await fetch. What are we fetching? We need to communicate with the API. So what is our API? The API we need to communicate with is this, and we are going to send along with the user ID. Instead of 1, we are going to fix our variable there. So instead of 1, it's going to be user ID. So whatever we supply or whatever we got there from here as user ID, that's what we are going to send down into this API, and it will go there, get whatever it needs to get, and once it's back, we are going to receive our response. But the response might not be something you're expecting. It can be error. So we need to check. So if response like this dot okay, we know that everything is successful like that. So what do we want to do? What we want to do here is to get the actual data. So const data is going to be await like this. And what are we awaiting for? We are waiting for response.json because the data is always coming back in a form of JSON. And what can we do here? We can just quickly log out the data that we got back so that we can know what we want to do. But you know that it's going to be an array of all the posts for that particular user. And here we can display our loading too, just like the way we did it here. So I'm going to copy the same thing that I have here, and I'm going to paste it here like that. And the same thing that we did here, so set our loading like that. So I will copy it, paste it inside the function. Then when everything is done, or whether there is error or no error, we still want to stop the loading. So here is going to be false like this, and we're going to set our data here later on, but we want to see what is coming back first. And on the UI too, instead of us just rendering this stuff here, we can show our loading to the user there based on what is going on. So if there is loading, we want to show the loading. If there is no loading, we don't want to do anything, or we don't want to show the details. So this one too, I'm going to do like what we did that time. So here, if it is loading, what do you want to do? We want to show our loader. So I've actually created a component loader, but inside it we are going to create our loader later on. We are going to add what we need inside it. So let me import it, and it's not showing the import. Is that not what I call it? Let me scroll down. Okay, I'm even using P here, so let me replace it with our loader. So I've created a component which I call this loader here. So why is it not importing it? So let me try to auto import it again. So VS Code is not loading, so let me just copy the stuff, but they are inside the same place. So this one should be loader like this. So just copy it, put it inside this our file, because it's the same thing. So let me move it up, paste the loader. All of them are coming from the component VS Code. What is going on? VS Code. All right, so it's done. So here, if there is loader, show it. But if there is no loader, what do you want to do? You want to display the list. So if it's not loading, display the list if you have it. But if it is loading, just show the loader. And we're going to work on that loader later on. But for now, what do I have inside the loader? Is just a text that is there. As you can see, it's just loader, which I'm going to put the 3 dots like this. So what do I need to do? Let me just save all the code. So save all and go back into our page. And if everything is working correctly, we should have the post for that particular user in the console here. Have I saved everything? Is VS Code saved? All right, go back to user post. It will never work because we've not called the function. So this is our fetch data. Down here, we need to call it. So again, save, and we should have log for our post once it's done. So it will show loading here, and once the stuff is back, then we are going to have the loading there. So VS Code, what is going on? Yeah, it is done. So let me go back into this. I can see one error here. It's not error, but it's not showing correctly. So let me go back to the page. On the page we have the post. On this post I'm calling user instead of I'm using user instead of this single one. Yeah, so save, close this home page. I don't need it right now. Single post, I don't need it right now. So go to the log. Are we calling the API? It's not calling any API right now. So let me reload the page, and once this thing load, as you can see now, it's calling it. I can see that it show loader briefly. Let me reload again, or let me even click on any user. As you can see, it show loader briefly, and it will call the API, fetch data based on the user you click on, and it will return the data for that particular user. So this is the first one. This is the last user that we click on. So can you see, these are the posts. So this is for the user 6. This one is for user 3. This one is for user 2. This one too is still for user 2. Like that. So the user that we click on before, it's user 3. So it's bringing out all its posts, which is still 10 too. Like that. So the way we did for the user, we need to do it for the post. But what do we need from the post? As you can see, what we need from the post, we need the ID, we need the title, and at the same time, we need to supply what? We need to supply part of the body. We need to display part of the body. What we want to do here is going to be something like this. So let me draw the layout too. So we are going to have something like this, where we have the title at the top, and we have part of the body down here. For the body, it can't go more than 2 lines. So this down one here, which is part of the body, it can't go more than 2 lines. The title too, it can't go more than 1 line. Once it go more than 1 line, it's going to put the dot there to demarcate that this thing can go. The same thing is what we're supposed to do for this username too. As you can see, the username is taking 2 lines here, whereas we want it to be a single line. So how can we do that in Tailwind? It's quite easy. So let me go back into this user component again. So under the user, and where we have that name that we are displaying here, we can actually put this in by saying truncate here. So we can actually truncate our text by using this in there. What is that? So let me try to check this. We have, no, it's not tracking. Here, let me check the Tailwind doc. Let me check the doc again, because that's the one I use this. It should be line clamp. Yeah, it should be line clamp. Where is it? Let me go back. So line clamp. Where you come outside. Yeah, so this is what I want to use. So I want it to be a single line. So the line clamp, what is it going to do? Based on the number you applied in front, that's the number of line that you want to have. So currently here, as you can see, the name is going to 2 line, but we don't want it to go to 2 line. It should always be 1 line. Once I save the code now, you see that this V will not show again. Once you see that the name is trying to go more than 1 line, can you see it will add the dot, and that's what we're going to do too for the post body. The post body is going to be 2 line. Once you see that it's going more than 2 line, it will put the dot there, because we don't want it to go more than 2 line. Do we have a component for that? No, we don't have a component. So let's create a component too. So we're going to have the post.jsx, which is going to represent each one of the posts like that. So REFCA to generate the component for us. So inside the component, what we have, this one too is going to be a link, because we need to click on it to show us the full link for the page. So it's going to be a link, and where is it going to? It's going to look at it for every post. Once you click on them, it will go to the ID of the user /post, then the /ID of the post. So how can we get the ID of the user? It's quite easy to get. So we can just use our user ID, which is coming from use params, because with params we can get the ID from the URL. So the construct for our URL is going to be to, where are we going to? We are going to slash the user ID like this. We are going to slash post, and after this side we are going to go to the ID. So where is the ID is coming from? We are going to receive it. We are going to receive the title, and we are going to receive the body. So this is what we are receiving for our post, and inside this place we are going to have the H, let me use H5 here too, or let me use H6. So this is going to be the title that we want to display, and at the same time we are going to have the P, which is where we are going to display the body. Is that what we are using to, is that what is being sent? So we are, yeah, so it is known as body like that. We are receiving the ID, the title, the body. We are using the ID here, the body here, and the title are there. And for the title, we don't want it to go more than 1 line. So class name, this is going to be, so for this one, it's going to be this font bold. Then the line clamp, this one too is going to be 1. We don't want it to go more than 1 line. So for this one, the class name, we're going to have this the text X small. We want it to be smaller too, like that. So the line clamp of this one is going to be 2. So it should not be more than 2 lines. So for here, we're going to have the class name here too, where we're going to be having the P2, so that we can have the padding around everything like that. When it is over like that, we want to have the BG, that same amber that we use. But here I'm going to use 50. I don't know whether it's making sense, but once you use it on the page, everything is going to come in. So for the user, close it. The user list, we don't need it again. What we need is this post. So instead of us console logging out this post, what we can do is to set the post. So we need to set our post so that we can be able to render it on the page. So set post, what are we setting? The data that we receive from the backend there. So I will remove this dummy data that we have right now, then scroll down. Instead of using link like this, what we need to use is the post component that was created there, and we are going to supply id, so which is going to be post.id, and we spread everything into the component so that it can use it where it needs it. So this one's supposed to be key, not id. So it should be key. So save, and this thing should import what's going on with VS Code import. And now we should have our component, and if everything is working correctly, we should see the results on the screen because we've worked on the component already. So it will show loading. Can you see? We have the title, we have the body, title, the body, title, the body, and once you click on any one of them, as you can see, it will go to the post for that particular one like that. But right now it's not displaying anything, so we are going to see later on there. So now we're able to connect our API starting from the user. So let me go back to the home page again. So starting from the user list, we are calling the API to fetch the user list, and once the user list is out, what are we doing again? We click on it and it's going to fetch the post meant for that particular user. So click on Patrick, it will go there, fetch the one for this one, Patricia. Click on this Mrs. Dennis, and as you can see, it will fetch the post for Mrs. Dennis. Click on this Glenna, and it will fetch the post for Glenna, and so forth like that. And if I click on this Batology user, then it will go back to the home page because it will display only the user there like that. And the same thing that we did here is what we can do for displaying the full post item too, and it's still going to work, but I'm not seeing it. So let me click on this and let me click on the post. We're supposed to see something here, but I'm not seeing anything coming out. Are we passing the route correctly? So I'm going to check that one later. But before that one, what I want to do here is to work on this loader. So what I just want to do is to generate 10 items here in this form. So we want to generate something like this for the loader. So it's just for the loader, and based on what you supply to the loader there, it's going to generate different type. If it is post that you pass into it, it will generate something like this but as a skeleton. If it is a user you pass to it, it will generate something like this but as a skeleton, which is something I showed you last time. So we are going to pass the type. So based on the type, it will render something out on the screen. So first of all, I need to create the dummy list. So the list here is just going to be array of 10 values. So it's going to be arrays of 10 values. So which I can just use new array like this, or it can just be, because I don't want this thing to be generating it every time. So what we can just use const items like this. So set items. I don't even need this set one. So this is going to be use state like this so that it doesn't regenerate the stuff every time that we need it like that. So what do we want to do? What we just want to pass here is going to be new array like this. How many items? I just want to render 8. So what this thing will do is that it will just create dummy array, and I'm filling it there with 0. So I'm filling everything with so fill. What is fill? What is this? Let me show it on the screen so that you can see what I'm doing. So what I'm doing here is that new array, pass the number there. Whatever number you pass here, as you can see, it will create empty array for you based on this number. But as you can see, it is empty. Nothing is here. So that's why fill is needed. So when you use fill, it's going to pull whatever you want there like that. So 0. So what is the value that you want to pass? So I can just pass like this. You can see it will fill it with this value, or if you want, you can just pass the start and whatever you stuff. So 1 and maybe like 6 like this. It's still going to do the same thing. But what I need right now is for this thing to give me this to fill everything with 0, and once it's done filling everything, I want to map it. So after filling, what did I want to do? I want to map everything, the item that we are getting back. So I'm going to get the item or the number that is there, and I'm going to get the index. And what did I want to do? I just want to return the index plus 1. So that's what can you see what I'm doing here? I'm generating array of 6. I'm generating array with the length of 6. But when you generate array, it will give you empty like this. Nothing will be there. So I'm now filling everything with 0. But everything will now be 0, which is not what I want. So what am I doing? I'm just using the index. But instead of me doing like this too, I can just leave everything at 0, and then where I want to render the stuff, I will get the index instead of me doing it like this. And that's what I will do. So I will just fill with 0. And what do we want to display? We want to display our items based, or want to display our loading based on what is going on. And in order for us to see what is going on, here I will not set the loading to be false so that you can see what is going on. So the loading will always be true at that place. So what do I want to do here? So if the type is the same thing as user, we know that we want to render the user this in here, the user loader. So here I'm just going to have the div for the user loader like that. But before I do that, let me use the array first. So what do you want to do here? I want to do items then dot map, so that I will get the item that I want. So the item, or I can just use, because I don't need it, what I need is the index. So here, what do we want to do? What we want to do here is to check whether the type is user. If the type is user, we want to create this kind of a layout. But if the type is post, we want to create this kind of a layout, because you can see they are different. This one is not having circular, this one is having this circle stuff. So that's the reason why we need to receive the type to display the loader that we want. So what do you want to do here? What we just want to do is to return like this. What are you returning? So I want to return type. Is it the same thing as a user? If it is user, I want to return a particular div which is different from the other one. And if it's not that one, so let me close it, then another div again. But what is going to be inside them is quite different. So the first div, we have something different, and the second one, we have another thing that is different. Or instead of me using it like this, I can just say so user like this. So if it is user, then we know that it is user there. So let me just say user like this. What I will just do is to pass it as a boolean. So if it is user like this, do something for us. But if it's not, do another thing there like that. So let me just remove this one so that I can. So down here, this is what we want to display when it is user. What do we want to do? We want to create this kind of a layout that we have under this thing. So we're going to have the div. Then after the div, we are going to have another div again. Inside this div, that's where we have our span. We are going to have 2 span. So, and this is what we are going to use to create our skeleton that I talked about there. But if it is this one, the down one here, the only thing we just need there is span. We don't need the div. That's just the difference like that. So we don't need this div. Or instead of even doing it like this, since this thing is going to be the same, or no, the styling are not the same. So let me just separate them like this. But we have a lot of div. So what is going on here? What we need to do, so let me apply the classes so that you can see what is actually going on. So you can see what is going on the screen. So we are going to have flex. So flex. So we are going to have items center. So we are going to have this gap of so do I need to put gap? So let me just put gap of 1. So for this one, we're going to have the class like this class name. So we have the flex col, gap should be 4 like this, so that we can have a space in between them. So what do we need to have inside this div? We are not doing anything inside there. We are not putting any content. We are just creating a skeleton loader. And you are going to see how I'm going to create it now. So here we have h. I think we use 8. Then w2 is 8. So rounded full. So we're going to have a rounded full. And again too, this thing is going to have bg of gray. So it's going to have bg gray of this 300. Then after that, we are going to use this animate that is coming from Tailwind. So we have something like this bounce, or we have pink, we have pause, and we have Spain. So I think I will just use this pause for it like that. So for these two span, or before I get there, so class name, so that you can see what is going on. Flex call, like this gap should be 1, and each one of these span here. So let me give them class name. So we have the width should be full, the age should be 3, like this. So rounded, small, bg, gray should be the same thing, 300. So animate, which is coming from Tailwind, which is going to be pause like this. So when it's coming from the user, this is what we want to do. But when it's not coming from the user, this is the other thing I want to do for now. But I will make changes to them. But for now, let me just duplicate this the span, so that you can quickly see what is going on. Again, let me save this code here so that we can see our loader, and we are not going to be seeing the data. So let me save, and let me reload the page there like that. Can you see? So this is what we call the skeleton loader here. So which is showing you like the way the data is going to come outside there. But the height of this one is supposed to be more. And that's the reason why I want to separate them. So this one we have height of around that 8. So for the second one, which look like the year. So look at the skeleton loader. But the background is not making sense there for this one. So I will change the background. So let me change the background to blue like this, so that it can appear on the post. Yeah, so can you see? So this is what we call skeleton loader. And as you can see, it's only returning 8 of them. But let me return, what if you have maybe like 10 like this? So let's increase it to 10. So it's going to generate 10. And as you can see, it's not showing for the user. Why is it not showing for the user? Because the stuff is done loading. If I reload the stuff again, like if I reload it, it will show for some time and it will disappear, because for the background, can you see? It showed for some time and it just went off. But it's showing the same thing for all of them. So let's go to that component where we have it, which is this user list. So under this user list, we need to talk to this our loader to use user. So the user is going to be true. And once we send that the user to be true, it knows that when it's loading, it's going to give us the one for the user, not the one for the post that we have there. So save and reload the page again. You see that we're going to see the loader briefly. As you can see, it's showing, but this thing is not showing correctly the way I want it to be. So let me just remove all these things that we're not using here. Again, to the loader we are setting to false here, let's disable it so that we can see what is going on here too. So reload the page again, reload the page again, and as you can see, it's not displaying correctly and the color too is not making sense. So let's go back there and update the color. And I think we're using the background we use here is slate. So let me follow that background too. So here is going to be slate. So instead of 300, it should be around that 500 so that it can come out on top. Yeah, so can you see it's coming out? So what do we need to do? This thing is not displaying here. This one is not showing at all. So this one that we have here is not showing at all. And why is it not showing? The reason it is not showing is because it doesn't have the width. The thing is not showing at all. So let me highlight it. As you can see, it doesn't have width. That div that's supposed to be there. So this is the entire div. Then we have this item here. Inside the item, we have the one at the top and we have this one here. Can you see the width is 0? So we need to talk to it that the width should be, we should give it flex of 1. So let me give it flex 1. And this one should bring it out. Still loading. Yeah, so as you can see now, is now out. And this is what we call skeleton loader. But I don't want the second one to be like this. So let me use 4 for this one so that we know that the title is really big and the other one is just small. Let me use 5 for the title. So it's going to give 5 for the title. And so this is what we call skeleton loader. But here I'm not using the index. So I'm not using the index. So what I'm mapping here, we should give it the key. The key should be whatever the index that I have here. So, and it's the same thing that is going to happen down here too, because it can happen to any one of them here. So save, and we have our loader. And the loader is going to be showing for the user will be different from the one it need to show for the post, because this one is for the post and this one is for when the user is true, because the user have this circular stuff. So this is what we call skeleton loader, which kind of give brief interface to the user how your content is going to come outside on the page. And let me go back to the user list and activate this thing again so that it can disable the loading when our data is back. So when the data is back, you should quickly remove everything. So let me reload again, and you see that we're going to see the loader briefly because the network is fast. So as you can see, it will load, and once the data is back, then it will show the data for us. And once we click on any of the user too, can you see it will show the one for the post, and once the post too is back, you see that it will replace it with the content, because that's what we are doing in the component here. So when the thing is loading, show the loader, but when it's not loading, then show the details. And as you can see here now, the API is taking time to load. So I don't know what's wrong with the network. So it's still loading. No, everything is back. So it's not the network. So let me go there. I did not disable the loading. Yeah. So let me bring this in back. So bring this in back again. And now, once the API is done, we should see the data being rendered on the screen. So let me click another user again. So it's loading, and as you can see now, the data is back. Click another user, it will show the loading, and once the user is back, then it will update the user. But we have a problem here too, which the problem that we have here. So we need to solve that one too. And how do we do it for the user? So we just give this in there. So what do we do? What we'll do is there to use this max height of 100 VH, and we use this overflow of auto because we don't want the stuff to keep going outside. So that same thing we did here, we can do it for this one too, like that. So that so we don't want the thing to keep going outside. And if you click on any of the posts, it should kind of display the actual post that we have there. So the details, we're going to fed the API, and it will display the data there. And that's what you are going to work on as assignment. So that's what you are going to do as an assignment. You are going to complete the application by displaying the post that the user click on. So if I click on this one, we should see the post title at the top here, and we should see the other post. But right now, it's showing blank screen for that place. Why is it showing blank screen? Is because here we are not, let me see, we have this 7/post and slash the ID. So let me go into our routing inside the app.gsx. So what do we have here? So when you go to /user ID /post, we are going to show the post page. And when we go to this /single stuff, we are going to see this single post. But I'm not seeing the single post. It's not showing anything. And the reason it's not showing anything is because nothing is inside it. So inside this single post now, that's where you are going to display the post. So let me extract out the post ID. So here we can extract out the user ID. We can extract out the post ID, which is coming from the use params here. So your job now is to display or to fetch the post based on the post ID to get the details, the full details. Where are you going to get the stuff? I'm going to put the API here. So we have the user ID like this, and at the same time we have the post ID. So save like this. Can you see the user ID and the post ID? But why is it showing this particular stuff? So I don't like this color that is at the back. So we don't want to see any color there. So let's go to the page where it's being rendered. So it's being rendered. So let me click on it, and I think we are using background somewhere. Oh, it's not even here. It's inside the single. Yeah, actually inside the single. So let me remove it. We don't want any background, so we should see this. What we can just have there is P5 like this, so that we have enough padding at that place. As you can see, we have these items, and your own job now is to fetch the post, that single post. So how do you fetch the single post? The API is here. So to get the post, as you can see, this is the endpoint to call. So let me copy the endpoint. So let me copy the endpoint. So let me copy the endpoint to get a single post. So get single post by ID. So to get a simple post, this is the endpoint, and here you are going to have the post ID there like that. So you need to replace the post ID. This is the endpoint you are going to call to get a single post. But how do you get the comment for that post? So to get the comment for a post, as you can see, this is the endpoint to call to get all the comments for a particular post. So to get comments, so get comments for a post. So here you call this endpoint. You call this endpoint, where one is going to be replaced by the post ID. So this is the endpoint to call, and everything is going to get called inside this place. And what do you need to do there? What you need to do, let me put the layout down. So what you need to do here is that you can put the loader for this one too, but yeah, we can actually put the loader for this. But for now, at the top, let me use H1. You are going to have the title of the post. Then after the title of the post, you are going to have the P. Here you are going to have the body of the post. Then after the body of the post, we are going to have a div here. And inside this div, you are going to have all the comments. So here, you are going to have the list of comments. So how does the comment looks like? You call the API and you see what is going on there. Or you can just click on any one of them. Let me send this full link too. So this is the guide. So for you to see any one of them, just click on the link and it's going to take you to the API call for it. As you can see, the one I'm calling is, can you see the post ID, the name of the person that made the comment, the email of the person that made the comment, and the body. So be creative. Based on this data, you need to work on a UI that is going to use the name, the email, and the body, just like the way I did my own here, like this. So you too, you are going to put the title, the body of the post. Then after that, you now list out all the comments, because as you can see, it's not just one. They have how many comments for this post? So this post only have 5 comments. With another post, you can have more than that. Let me try the second one. So let me see the post 2. Let's see how many comments for that one. I think it's the same. Okay, all of them have the same thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of them only have 5 comments. So this is the guide that you need to follow. So the guide like that. So just follow this link and you're going to see all the URLs. So I'm going to push this code to your side. You put them in and you work on this page to display the data for this side. So clicking on this one, it will display all the user. Then when you click on any user, as you can see, it will fetch the post for that user, the list of that post. Then when you click on any post, then it will now show the full post. But this thing is not mobile responsive, because right now if you go to mobile, as you can see, it's not making sense on the mobile. We don't care about that. We only focus on the API call. And in the next class, we're going to be moving to a bigger application by working on a dictionary app. So in our next class, we are going to be working on a dictionary app, and that one, the UI is there. So we don't need to be cracking anything from our head. The UI is there on the Figma, which is what I want to show right now. So it's already on the Figma. What we just need to do is to follow the design and connect the API that will make the application to be functional. So this is the Figma that we're going to be using in the next class. Here like that. We won't be following all this one that I just picked online there. But this one is a full-blown design. As you can see, this is a full-blown design. The color palette we need to use, everything has been given to us. The fonts we are going to use, they are here. So we are going to set up the project in the next class, set up the color using the new Tailwind, set up everything there. Again, after that, we set up the layout. Then once we are done with layout, we start working on all the components that we need. Then when we are done with the component, we now connect to the API to fetch the details based on what the user type in this. So whatever the user type inside this box, we are going to fetch, or we are going to call the API that owns the definition for that stuff that the user type, and we are going to display the details out here. But how do we display all this in? How do we do it like this? The API we want to call actually arrange all this thing for us. Our own is just to go to the key and pick the data we want to display. So as you can see, this one is meaning, this one is synonyms, and this one are different definition based on whether it is on the noun. This is for the verb, And depending on the definition, some of them we have more than noun and verb like that. But for sample, this is what it's showing. As you can see, there is error here because this is the way the design is supposed to be. But the person that do it is lazy, did not do the copy and paste very well. But no, I think the problem is that this one is using another font. So you can actually change fonts. So this one is when it is sans serif, this one is when it is serif, and this one is when it is using mono. So we are going to undo all this in our application. And again, too, this is play button. Once you click on it, if that thing is having definition there or you have audio to play, we are going to add it into our application. But we are going to be starting with this application in the next class. And again, as you can see, it has both the light and the dark mode. And again, too, it is mobile responsive and a tablet responsive. So this is how it's going to be on tablet, and this is how it's going to be on mobile. So we need to work on the 3 screen. So the tablet will be the mobile. So this is how it's going to be displayed on a mobile. This is what we are going to do on tablet, and this is what we are going to do on big screen. So everything is there for us. Our own is now to design the application, and this application is something that you can showcase in your portfolio because it's going to put you on the map, or it's going to really give you a lot of experience from this for everything that we've been talking about from the past class there, like that. So this is what we'll be working on as from next class. But please, you need to work on this assignment that I gave to you here. But before we call it a day, instead of this thing to be showing empty screen when you are not clicking on anything, I want to actually add all this in there. So go back into the app like this. If you look at it, once you go back to the page with our application, if I click on this Batology here, as you can see, all these side they are empty. So all this one, they are not being open yet. We want to show something when they are not opened at all, like that. So when it is not open at all, we want to show something. So we can use the index for that. Under the, as you can see here, we have these parts. So we can actually use index there. So when it's not on this page yet, so what do we want to do? We can actually use index, what we want to show there, like that. So here I can just say here I can just use H1 for now. And what is going to be there? No user selected. So no user selected. So H1 like that. So this is not what is supposed to be here. Index supposed to be true. Then the element supposed to be no user selected. What does this mean? Index means that when you're on the slash and you are not on any of the URL, this is what is going to display under the outlet that we have on the home page. As you can see, we have outlet there. So when the outlet is not seeing any other thing, it will just be empty. But instead of it to be empty, we want it to display this thing for us by default. That's why we're using index true. So when we don't have any page to render for the outlet, this is what is going to show. But once you go to this address, this is the element is going to show for the outlet. So once this thing is saved, you see that here we should have no user selected once it's loaded there like that. And that's where, as you can see, no user selected. But once you select user, as you can see, it will replace it with the correct stuff. But it would be nice if you have a style on it. Normally it's supposed to be a component, but I'm not going to give it as a component. So here it is going to be flex like this, H screen like that. So items, center, justify, center like this. So text, center again like that, so that I can move whatever that is there to center. So save. If I go back to this Batology user, as you can see, it will just show no user selected. But once you select user, it will show the user. If you go back to the home page, we don't have anything selected like that. So let me increase the size. So this one should be text 3XL like that. Font bold, text italic like that. And it is going to be text blue. Let's use 800 like this. So save so that it follow our brand color. So once everything is saved and it gets to the screen, we should have no user selected with that styling. But why is it not in italics? Oh, it should be italics rather than text italics. And again, why is it not bold? Not be font bold that I use. Yeah, font bold. Oh, the font we are using did not have italics or what? So let me see it. And we should have. What's wrong with this thing? Yeah, so now it's in italic. So no user selected. But once you have a user selected, again too, for the post, we should have like a demo for that one too, or like a dummy page. So I will just copy it like this, and I will paste it for this one too by using it. But instead of user, it's going to be no post selected. So no post selected like this. So save, and going back to the page. So when you don't have any post selected, you see that one too will display for this white area. Go back to the home, no user selected, click on a particular user, no post selected. And once you click on any post, then that one too will now display the post to the user there like that. But you now, your assignment is to work on this page. By displaying the title, you fetch based on the ID that you have from the URL, you fetch the post, then that post, it will return the title for you, the body, and some other information. Then after that, you call another API again, which is going to list all the comments for the particular post that you click here. And I've already attached the stuff that you need here. So this is the one to get you for the post. This is the one that will get you the content or the comments. So what you just need to do is to create the effect. Then based on the ID, based on the post ID, you call the API to get this post for you. And at the same time, you call the one that will get the comment. You create the state for the post. You create the state for the comment. And you create the loading in case you want to show the loader there. Because when the thing is still loading, you want to show that this thing is loading by just passing, creating your own skeleton for it like that. Just like the way we did for this. No user selected, select the user. So the skeleton is showing for that. And if you reload the entire page, we're going to load the user first. And from there, we load the post for it. As you can see, we load the user, then we load this particular post for it. So now no post selected, select post. It will be there. Click on the user. There won't be any post again selected at that point because the URL has changed. And once you click on any post again, it will display the data. And that's what we did here. That's what is going on too on the WhatsApp web. When you click on the user, it will display the details for you there. This is just the simple stuff, but more advanced. But this is the layout that you can use to display this in there. That will be all for today. Thank you. Let me stop recording.